So what are the things that are holding people back sexually? People who need sex therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What help do they need? Why do they need it? And how do you help?
So a big one is shame, sexual shame.
They've got an interest that they want. And then, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, for instance, okay, tangent. Don't forget where you are. Let me just go on this tangent, right? So hold that thought. So there's a guy who I used to know way back in the day. And I found out about a year ago that this guy who I used to know way back in the day was experimenting with this woman. Mm-hmm. He put something inside himself in a place it wasn't designed to go. Mm-hmm. Couldn't get the thing back out, right? And then ended up having to go to the hospital to get the doctors to remove it.
And he fell. He fell.
I don't know what he told them. I don't know what he told them, but I can imagine how humiliating that was, number one. And number two, the people who were telling me were laughing at him as well.
Okay.
So that was even more humiliating. And I guess like, I had no idea that he had that kind of interest, right? So clearly there's like deep shame around that. And I'm sure there's loads of people who walk around with urges that they can't reconcile.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you say shame, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so the shame and then what else?
Yeah, shame. Or do you mind if I add to that quickly?
Go on.
Like in case anyone who is listening who's into like anal play and things like that.
I think there's a good chance. There's a
good chance, yeah.
There's someone. There's definitely someone.
If you're going to experiment, just make sure there's a stopper. So like there's something at the end.
You are a professional.
Because that's how things get lost up there, you know.
If you're going to experiment, make sure there's a stopper. Yeah. All right, anyway, carry on.
Sorry, I forgot your question now.
Okay, so basically, what do they need help with? And like, why do they need the help? And how do you help them?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of things. So there's maybe one partner doesn't know how to say what they want. Maybe there's been a discrepancy in desire. A lot of times the partner with low desire is it's made out like they've got the problem, but maybe that person is just not getting what really gets them going. But we just assume that they have low desire. So exploring, well, what is it that works for you both can be a part of it. You know, things like erection problems. Sex therapy is super broad. So there's loads of like niche areas within this niche.
All right. So, and how exactly do you go about helping? Or is it like tailored to the specific problem that they have? So for instance, they say like erection problems with men can be physical, like low testosterone or something like this, and being really unhealthy.
Yeah.
But then there's also the psychological component as well, of like porn addiction and whatnot.
Okay.
So...
yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that actually. So the way we look at most problems is biological, psychological, and social. Which of these factors are at play here? So as you mentioned, erection problems. But like you said, like being unhealthy can definitely be a thing, your diet. But, you know, psychological factors like high anxiety. Have you heard of performance anxiety? Yeah. So things like performance anxiety that could be affecting it. But there's so many like different aspects of it. Is tailored to each person.
It sounds like what I'm basically hearing is the reason why people need sex therapy is largely because they place too much like stress and importance on the act, and like build it up to be such a big thing in their minds. Is that effectively it? I guess what I'm saying is when you're working with people, are you effectively training them to be more, and it's going to sound strange, but bear with me, childlike in their approach to sex? Now, let me explain what I mean. What I basically mean is like, say, when I was a kid, I was happy to make mistakes doing things, and I didn't treat things as a huge deal. So you might ask me to try and dance, and I'll get up and I'll do the dance.
Yeah.
And maybe I do the dance in a dumb way or a silly way, but I don't really care. I'm not really focused on it. I'm just enjoying the act of dancing.
Yeah.
But then at some point I realized that, well, if I dance in a way that isn't cool, people won't like me. Girls won't want me. People will look down on me. So now I don't know if I should dance anymore. And if I'm going to dance, I'm going to do it in a guarded way. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like that energy of, I am free to just explore, to bring that into your adult activities. Here's an example, right? Another one, you say that you did tantric massage. I went to a seminar years ago where they had us do, and this was a sex seminar, they had us do like a game where we had to pretend to be animals, right? But we're supposed to be like, it's in a sexual context, and it's said pretend to be an animal. And then I'm thinking, hold on, I'm not going to fucking pretend to be a lion. Why the hell am I going to do that? I don't want to do that. But then I thought, well, hold on. Why do I care so much? Because if I was just at an improv class and they said pretend to be a lion, I'd be roaring everywhere and I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
But for some reason, because it was a sexual context, I was like, all serious.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't pretend to be a lion. It's like, well, why can't I pretend to be a lion?
Yes.
Who actually cares?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, actually. Obviously, there's other aspects to sex therapy too, but that's like a massive part. Like you said, in those words, learning to approach it with that childlike.
That's so weird.
It is.
I don't know if I'm
but
going to clip
it's playful, it's innocent, you know?
Yeah. We won't clip this for social media.
Okay. In trouble. But no, yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I love that you mentioned about the pretending to be an animal, because in some of the tantra exercises, they'll do like interesting things like meet another person with another part of your body. So like, how would you meet them with just your feet? Or, you know, tantric dance is kind of like free and flowing, and you're not trying to like stay on beat. Like if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. It's just really having that freedom to just be. And that's when your body comes most alive.